This video was graciously sponsored by KiwiCo. More on them later. You know how you have those ideas that are like really stupid and you know you shouldn't do them, but then you think about them and they fester and then you do them? Yeah, me neither. I have literally no idea what you're talking about. This is definitely not a bad idea or completely impractical. Nope, not me. Anyway, let's start. In order to do any kind of layups, I'm gonna need a form. So I figured I'd do what a lot of like cosplayers and dressmakers do, which is wrap yourself up in saran wrap and then wrap yourself up in duct tape, and then you have this empty shell of your body. And most of them stop there and they can like cut that up and get a pattern, or you can stuff it with stuffing. But I needed something hard so that I could lay composites onto it. So I decided I would try to fill it with flotation foam. This, by the way, is Priyanka. She's my bestie and probably one of the only people I would ever let wrap me up in duct tape like this, especially on camera, and to put it on the internet. I guess like as clean of a line up the back as possible without
right, following your butt crack.
Following my butt crack without cutting my clothes off, please.
I'll try my hardest.
Probably.
It's freeing.
It's very freeing. Oh my. Oh,
you're so sweaty.
I know. I'm covered in saran wrap. Amazing. Okay. Well, I'm gonna let that dry for a hot second. Me and my sweat are gonna go off camera. Once I was sufficiently less sweaty, it was time to close all the holes and turn it into a leak-proof pouch that we could pour foam into. Me getting outsmarted by child safety.
Do you need help?
Let's see if you do any better. Hold up. Oh.
Is this even child lock?
Oh my god. What? So here we have us this 2-part polyurethane flotation foam. I am using Bulletproof's 2-pound density foam. Don't ask me what that is in kilograms because I don't know. So the key to this stuff is to work really, really fast and also to not eat it, even though it really looks like forbidden coffee. Basically like have a rehearsal before you mix. So I'm gonna pour this in and then start mixing, and Priyanka's gonna videotape me mix for a second, and she's with the camera on a tripod and start holding that open so that we can pour it right in.
We've practiced.
We've practiced. Born ready?
Yeah.
Okay, put the camera there.
That's so cool. Oh, it's hot.
It's really hot. It can burn you.
That's cool.
Oh, okay. Can you move the tripod? Move the tripod. Alright.
That is so cool. I've never done this before.
It's like an art form, just like epoxy is an art form. I think anything that's 2-part is a skill, and it like...
It's like, it's hot and wow.
Damn.
That's you.
So there's some lessons learned, and we decided that this one's fine, but we're gonna try again. So... But don't worry, I won't put you guys through that again. That would just be rude. Alright, since I have 2 of these like creepy Xyla shapes, I'm gonna try cutting the duct tape and saran wrap off this one and seeing if I can use a hot wire to really smooth it out. And if it doesn't work, I have the other one. See the resemblance? Not bad. So I got this super cheap hot wire cutter, and I really want to see if it can do this foam. Finally, once I was done hot wiring my body, I went in and covered it with Tyvek tape, and epoxy doesn't stick to it, so I don't need mold release. And with the completed mannequin, I just put the duct tape back on and freehanded the dress I wanted. Now, I'm peripherally modeling this off of a dress I found online that I thought would look kind of cool in carbon fiber, but I didn't end up sticking to it all that much. Okay, so I've drawn my dress onto this duct tape, and now I'm gonna try to cut it out symmetrically. So I want... And with my panels cut, I traced them onto the mannequin so that I would know exactly how much Kevlar I needed for that first layer. And then for some unknown reason, my pre-coffee brain decided that I could like jam a piece of conduit all the way through this mannequin, which was very clearly not the case. So I ended up just drilling a hole in each side and then sticking shorter pieces in, which should have been my plan from the beginning, to be honest. I then measured and cut out my Kevlar, and let me tell you, electric scissors will make your life so much easier when you're working with tougher composites like this. And then because I've never actually worked with Kevlar before, I did a dry fit to make sure that this material can actually conform to all of these compound curves. And the answer was yes, it could. So I proceeded to mix up my epoxy and wet it out. And because for this dress the material has to go all the way around in one go, I did a wet layup so that the ends would stick to themselves. It just makes things a little easier. And then with the Kevlar in, mostly the right place, I pulled the plastic sheet off and just got to work smoothing out. And this is something that just takes a little bit of patience and some care, and I used my electric scissors again to cut off the excess. And now, if you're going to do this, it's a good idea to keep a little jar of acetone nearby so you can just stick them in the acetone when you're done, and you won't ruin the scissors by cutting wet epoxy. And then it was just rinse and repeat for the second and third layer of Kevlar. And if you've seen any of the composites work I've done in any of my other videos, you know I always do this while the previous layer is still green, and that way you get a chemical bond in between each of the layers. And since some of you have asked, the green stage in epoxy chemistry is when the epoxy mixture passes into this initial cure phase, so it's no longer workable, but it's not fully cured yet. It's basically the time period when the epoxy is going from that sticky, tacky gel consistency to a more rubbery but can still be dented consistency. And while the last layer of Kevlar was still green, I went ahead and switched over to carbon fiber. And I'm not entirely sure how I managed to mismeasure this piece and end up short, but I didn't want to waste so much carbon fiber cloth, so I sort of just went for it, since it's mostly just an art piece anyway. And then as you can see, I did not mismeasure this layer, so no one will ever know that there is one layer that's a little bit short. And maybe the bottom of the dress will be a little bit less bulletproof than everywhere else, but there's no vital organs in the middle of the thigh. And this is where I'm going to stop with all the layups for now, and my last layer will actually be once the dress is cut out, and it will be in the panels I want. So then I went in and traced those duct tape panels that I made earlier, and those will tell me where to cut. So, well, I have no plan, because I have no brain.
Yeah, for sure.
But basically, these duct tape pieces are all cut out of the duct tape form section, and this is the shape of all of the final panels that will give it its pizzazz. So this is just to give myself a guide for the future.
Ruh-roh.
Ruh-roh. Oh, thanks, Charles. If I stare at it long enough, then things just come back to me in my shop. I don't know. It only happens when these guys are here, but yeah, I don't know. This would be good footage if my Sharpie didn't suck.
We're gonna have to bleep that out.
Cut. We're
Cut. None of this is usable. You gonna jump on it?
I think I should jump on it.
I think you should.
Okay, so we are doing a very scientific Kevlar strength test of the Kevlar. So basically, this is a piece of Kevlar that I cut off, and it is fully impregnated with epoxy and has been set. And Ender is an undisclosed amount of pounds, and we're gonna see how strong it is.
Very heavy.
Godspeed, may the gunch be with you. Oh! Wow. It gone.
Crunch.
It crunched.
She crunched, but she sprung back.
It's not bad. It's not bad. You can take a bullet.
Yeah.
It's fine.
And then with those hooligans successfully evicted from my shop, I could finally get around to demolding this thing. I feel like I should start a second channel just to have somewhere to dump all of that garbage, because it really probably does not belong in this video. Anyway, an oscillating tool was definitely the move for cutting all of this composite off, but I will say I was blowing through blades. The Kevlar is nasty to cut through, it's nasty to sand. It was my first time using it, and man, no one was lying to me when they said it was awful to work with. So I cut 2 lines from top to bottom down the sides of the dress, and that will help get it off the form and also onto a body. And then while it was still on the form, I also cut the hemline and the top bodice line. And the Tyvek tape worked spectacularly. I had no issues getting anything off the mold. And then right before I pulled it off, I decided it was probably gonna be easier to do the sanding on the form, so I did that. Ooh. Okay. It's demolded, which probably means that there's a like pending moment of truth that needs to happen, which is, did the foam shrink and does the dress still fit me? So let's find out. Ruh-roh. The answer is that it shrunk-ed, which is not great news. So what happened, I think, this is my hypothesis, is that, so you wrap yourself in duct tape, and then you really only get the circumference. You don't kind of get the dimensions as well. So it's gone more circular because when the foam expanded, it just like pushed against the duct tape however it could go. And so as a result, my body like got narrower and wider in the front. Again, it's like the hips that are really bad. The hips did not work at all. This is hard though. This actually might be bulletproof. In the span of shooting this clip, I decided I'm going to cut the skirt off and see if the corset part fits. If the corset part fits, I think this is savable. If the corset part doesn't fit, this video still needs to go live in a week. I might have to find a smaller model. All right, let's do it. At this point, you may feel the need to contest the fact that I'm calling it a bulletproof ball gown, given that I don't actually know if it's going to be bulletproof because I can't find any records of people shooting 3 layers of Kevlar and then 3 layers of carbon fiber on top of it. The hacksmith tested and 6 layers of Kevlar works, but they never tested it with carbon fiber. And also, now that I'm cutting it into lots of little pieces, it's becoming much more of a corset and less of a ball gown. But I'm gonna stick to it because it still covers my vital organs. So we're gonna keep bulletproof ball gown. All right, moment of truth, round 2. Let's find out. Ooh, it doesn't feel good at all. But I can make it work for like a photo shoot, probably. The top is okay. It's like, it doesn't feel great, but it's the bottom that this corner is digging in because again, like it didn't flare from my hips at all, but damn does it look cool. Honestly, I feel like I could stop here and just say like, I made a carbon fiber corset. Why am I? Wait, carbon fiber corset is as much of an alliteration as bulletproof ball gown.
So I've got a mask on, that's why it's muffled, sorry. But looking down into it now that the corset part is cut out, it's like pretty easy to see why it doesn't fit. Because it basically the foam just expanded the duct tape in like the furthest it would go from itself, which you end up with like this perfect circle. And a human body is not a perfect circle. So food for thought for next time I do something like this.
To make this corset top fit a little better, I decided to raise the sides of it so that they, instead of poking at the hip bone, which is not squishy, they would at least be poking in at the waist, which is a little bit squishy. And I feel the need to throw a disclaimer in here that like my body is not this shape. If you see me wearing this, I mean, it's exactly the same reason they wore corsets in the olden days, but it is squishing my rib cage and it is tightening my waist and it is not sustainable. So I don't want to like perpetuate any poor body image things here. It was literally an engineering mistake that I have to roll with because I'm on a deadline. And then while I was at it, I cut the bottom part into these panels, which can kind of splay out around my hips, so I can at least use them even if they aren't a solid skirt anymore. And then I danced my way over to where I stashed my carbon fiber and got going on the last layup. I'm doing this final coat of carbon fiber with the panels already cut, and that will give me complete control over what direction the weave is pointing. For example, on the bodice, part of the detail I've designed in is having different panels of carbon fiber that are pointing in different directions, just to add a little texture and visual pizzazz. And for this part, I'm using a little trick I picked up from my friends over at Bulletproof, and that is a wet layup where the composite material is sandwiched in thin sheets of plastic. And so you lay down a sheet of plastic, you wet out your cloth on top of it, and then you put down another sheet of plastic, trace the shape you want, and now you can use electric scissors and cut that shape out perfectly without getting any like fringes or tails. And so that's gonna let me do these really detailed pieces with clean edges. And to lay them down, it's kind of like a sticker. You peel off the backing and then you stick it down and then you peel off the top piece of plastic. And with my trial run of that new method pretty successful, I got much bolder and I decided to do a ton of panels all at once, and it worked out fine. Now these little ones were really nerve-wracking because they're the details on the bodice. So not only are they like the front and the top, but they're really small, and I wanted them to be very clean and very crisp. And I also had an idea in my head of which way I wanted the weave to be pointing. So I had to get it right. And I will admit that I got 3 of them right, and one of them was the weave was going the wrong way, except that the weave sitting under the panel was actually going the right way for what I wanted. So I decided to just not put that panel on. And in the end, you can't tell. And once all those sections were mostly cured and or green, I don't remember, I mixed up some more epoxy and I slathered it on the inside just to make it a little smoother for wearing it. I will be lining it with a cloth, but it was very spiky. And then I filled in the weave on the outside, and that'll give me a nice smooth surface to sand into like that perfect finish later on. To clean it up, I started with the edges and an oscillating saw just to take off any of the excess carbon fiber from those detail panels I put on. And then I went in and did a really good job detail sanding it. And I wanted to get this like really nice, smooth finish so that the varnish would just make it pop. And for any sandpaper nerds out there, I guess I used 120 to knock it down using the power sander, and then I used 320 by hand. The edges were a nightmare because Kevlar doesn't sand very well or cut very well or do anything very well, but I did use a Dremel to round it over a little bit. Now I wanted to add these details that I'm pretty sure are called piping in dressmaker sewing land, but I'm not entirely sure. And I did it by actually separating out long strands of carbon fiber from some carbon fiber tape, combing them out with a fingernail, and then very carefully laying them down on all of the seams where my detailed panels met. And this was a great decision. It really made all those panels pop. And because I had already sanded it, and once the piping was on, I couldn't really sand it again, when the epoxy was still wet, I chased down the edges with acetone to clean up any epoxy I might have gotten with my gloves so that I wouldn't have to sand up close next to the piping. And apologies for sticking my shoulder and or whole body into this shot. It was actually very nerve-wracking to put it on, and at a certain point I stopped paying attention to the camera so I could just focus. And I know I made this joke when I made the cedar strip corset, but what more appropriate varnish to use for a project as ridiculous as this as Lust from TotalBoat, which actually is also one of my favorite varnishes. But especially because this dress, because of my poor form making skills, came out way more scantily clad than intended. Also, a big thank you to Bulletproof for continuously supporting my channel. There's a discount code below. Also, to cut out and clean up the back panels and then wipe them down with acetone, which is what I always do before I varnish those, and then once I was feeling properly warmed up to my varnishing technique, I tackled the bodice. I kind of went panel by panel, and just like I always would with the varnish, I made sure to brush in 3 directions. So brush it on one way, brush it then perpendicular to that, and then tip it, which means very lightly sort of brush the air bubbles out of it in the same direction that you started. And as soon as the varnish was done drying, I realized it probably would have been smart to drill the holes first, but c'est la vie. I put some masking tape down to protect the finish, and to all of our collective shock, the sky didn't come crashing down. And then I did some cleanup with a knife, which was the only thing that really worked on the Kevlar tufties, and we were off to the races. And by races, I quite literally do mean races, because all the assembly you are watching right now happened 2 hours before I had to be at the studio to film all of the final shots. So I used some elastic webbing that I got from a craft store to attach the back panels to the front, and that would just give me a little bit of like breathing room and give. And I glued it down with good old CA glue, and then I lined it with, I think, quilting fabric, but honestly I have no idea. I just found it in a box somewhere, so who knows, but it was pretty comfortable. And just like that, we're done. Well, as done as we're gonna get for this video, because it's gotta get posted tomorrow, so let's see it. And since I know folks are gonna ask, my intent was actually to make a fiberglass skirt that was sort of semi-transparent, and I was gonna use that cage hoop skirt you see me wearing here as a mold, and I just ran out of time. So drop a comment, I guess, if you wanna see me finish that dream. Otherwise, enjoy. Also drop a comment if you wanna see me shoot this thing, and make sure you're following me on social media. It helps me out a ton. This video is sponsored by KiwiCo. KiwiCo is defining the future of play by making it engaging, enriching, and seriously fun. They create super cool hands-on projects and toys designed to expose kids to the concepts in STEAM: science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And as you guys know, I'm a huge proponent of hands-on learning. I personally did not learn all that much in a classroom, and I scraped through school by building things in my free time. Each monthly crate is designed by experts and tested by kids, and teaches a whole new idea or concept. KiwiCo offers 8 different subscription lines, each catering to different ages and interests. Each box comes with all of the supplies and tools needed to complete that project. Like, this box even had a screwdriver. Not that I don't have my own screwdrivers, but you know. KiwiCo believes that by giving kids the ability to problem solve, create, and innovate today, they can truly change the world tomorrow. Every single time I've done a KiwiCo video and received my box and put it together, I've been absolutely floored by just how good these kids are. The fact that I, a 25-year-old engineer with my own workshop, and I literally make things for a living, am like floored at how good they are, and also am completely entertained the whole time I'm doing it, just shows how good the engineering and the design behind these kits is. KiwiCo now ships to over 40 countries, plus you can use my link to get 50% off your first month of any crate. So go to kiwico.com/Xyla Foxlin to learn more. Happy making! I just wanted to say a huge thank you to my friends Priyanka and Allison for helping me out with this shoot. This is not the kind of dress that you can get in and out of yourself. And also to Joe Bernard for shooting all of this absolutely incredible footage. Joe has a Rocketry channel, and you guys should totally check it out. I'll link it down below. I'll also put Priyanka and Allison's Instagrams down below. Thank you so much.